of the Soldotna High School swimming pool. Over the past several months, there have been several stories going around our community regarding the future of the pool. Everything from permanently closing the pool to pool operation being taken over by some entity. We have seen and heard several stories about what it costs to operate the pool, but have no real understanding of what the true cost really is. Granted, the final decision on the pool continuing operation will be made by the school board. We are here today to listen to what options may be available to ensure the pool remains open and to see whether the city of Soldotna fits into any of those options or decisions. Each of the presenters will have 5 to 10 minutes to make a presentation to the council on the future of the Soldotna High School pool and to answer questions from the council and the administration. We will start with Ken Lyons from the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District, then Mayor Machicki from the Kenai Peninsula Borough, and then a representative from the swim club. If the council or Ms. Kincaid have any questions to propose to the presenters during the presentation, feel free to do so. So we'll start here now with Mr. Lyons.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Jolson.
Just out of abundance of transparency, I just want to disclose that I am in fact an employee of the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. However, I do not feel that that will influence my line of questioning here today or any potential decision should that come forward to the council at a point in the future.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Lyons.
Good afternoon, City Mayor and Council. My name is Carrie Dendurant, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. As the Assistant Superintendent, I do have oversight of the Planning and Operations Department with Mr. Lyon, and so I am here as support. I do want to let you know that we have been working together with a variety of different entities. The presentation that we are providing to you today is specific to Soldotna Area Pool. We have had similar conversations with Ninilchik, with Susan B. English over in Seldovia. We have a meeting that's scheduled with Rachel Lord in the Homer area as well as in the Seward area. So this is the presentation that we are providing to all of those different entities. And then also Mr. Holland did have a conversation with Mayor Machicki, who will also be taking lead with working with different entities as well. So the presentation today that we're doing is specific to the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. And the one piece that we do want to share is currently the base student allocation is helping to support our pools, which is a community piece. And so we're hoping that we will be able to find other entities to help support the pools that are not specifically just used for students and student learning. So I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Lyon.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We in this presentation, I think you guys all have an option here. We can flip to the next slide, is to explore partnership. There's a lot of questions and a lot of options out there. So we've gone in detail through, obviously, the next slide shows that we would not have pool operations if the school district hasn't funded it. Now the school district made an action with our board, with our finance and our document for the budget. It is not included. They're not covering any of those costs. So that's a passed as of Monday. So as we look at this, I mean, the fiscal reality is education funding is constrained, and we're working through those details. There's savings to drain a pool and leave it empty, but you don't save as much as you would if you actually use the space for that. So that's what this slide is doing. Next slide. We looked at other options to rent pools out to other entities such as a swim club, anything, I'm going to say non-government entity. So we put together, the next slide actually puts that proposal in there, and that is to try to do a pool rent at some dollar figure to cover maintenance costs, to cover the utility costs. While I'm on this slide, utility costs are estimated. We do not have separate meters. We have same boilers running the plant and other places. So we based it upon the pool gallons, the hours of operation, chemical use, all those kind of pieces, what we do with the utilities, pump sizes, and try to get an estimate at that point. We do have some good data from some of our sites as they've been shut down for months, and we can see the changes in the utility bills over that time. So this is based on that piece.
Under utilities, exactly what is included in there?
That is going to be whether it be gas or oil to heat the water, and you have your air handlers to change. Pools have 100% exhaust air, so it's 100% reheat air. The only thing more expensive than a gym to operate is a pool. I'll just be blunt right there.
So it would include for SoHi, electric
Electric and natural gas,
and natural gas.
and then we do pay water and sewer at those places as well.
Is it metered through for the pool?
I will get to that. It actually on a slide here, it'll tell me if it's metered. All of our pools have different connection points. Some are off wells and some are that way. The next option that we've kind of thrown out would be a borough service area, which we have a second-class borough. I'll let the borough explain that, but they don't typically in this area have recreational powers. They do exist in Nikiski and Seldovia, where they've been voted in. The next slide is that model where that would be picked up and what salaries and what the pieces would come in there. That goes to the custodial, and all the different pieces of operation would be covered by that entity. The next one is another entity, I will say a city, and they want to run the pool and just rent and pay the utilities. So if you hit one more slide up, that covers the utilities and the maintenance reserve that would be there, but the actual pool manager operations, lifeguards would be underneath as a city having their own employees running that.
If you want to just look at this particular slide, it does break it down for the Soldotna High School pool area. So, Mr. Mayor, when you were asking about those different utilities, that has the estimate on there. It does share what the maintenance reserve would be, and then just the different operations that would be in that particular setup. And so this would be the breakdown if the city pool did operate this model, but we did provide you additional information to the previous slides of what it could look like, but this is what it would look like if the city would operate. But we also provided information if an entity such as a swim club were to operate.
Right now, currently, how many employees are there at the Soldotna High School pool?
We have one pool manager, and then we have part-time on-call lifeguards. So there's about 5 or 6 lifeguards that rotate through it. Sometimes they go to the city of Kenai or the Kenai pool, and we just have a pool of lifeguards that are available in our area to cover those things.
And can you share who pays for the lifeguards, what account that comes out of?
That comes out of the 710 account, which is I'm going to say pool operations. So we'll get to that here in a little bit as we move forward.
The pool manager, is that a full-time position? And is that full-time at the Soldotna High School pool?
Yes, both are true. Both are full-time. You're going to see on a calendar, it's a 206-day calendar, but full-time for the pool.
Okay.
We go to the next slide. Sorry. The next slide shows probably the most logical option. In a former life, I worked for the city of Kenai as the public works director at that point. And so I tried to look at it from a city's perspective. And this is essentially a contribution so that the city would pay, but didn't end up with the employees, the extra staff, the evaluations, the training, and all the other pieces that go with that. So if we go to the next slide here, this would be a pool operations partnership model that, to me, not necessarily to you guys, would make a better sense if I was an entity where the city would pick up the salary, but the employee, the pool manager would remain an employee of the school district. They would pick up the utilities. So these are the items. So these items that are listed out here, the pool utilities, the maintenance, and the pool manager are all the pieces of the pool operations that are not covered in self-sustaining in the 710 account, which is the pool operations account. These are paid out of the school district general fund, so they come out of the BSA. So just to kind of put that, this is just to offset, so the BSA is not subsidizing pool operations.
Vice Mayor Parker.
So I had a number of questions, but one of the things you haven't addressed is revenue. So should you get an entity to operate the pools on behalf of the borough and the school district, who would receive those revenues?
That entity.
That entity.
Mhm.
And so, okay. And then one of the things that I had, right now, within a mile and a half, we have 2 pools. Have you looked at just operating one pool and not both pools?
Right now, the school district is not going to operate any pools. So that being the case, that one of those pools, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if one of them went away because they're such close proximity to each other. So at the Skyview pool, we run the water warmer and we have therapy and folks that come up there for physical therapy and those things. At Soldotna High School right now, we run at colder temperatures for those that are swim teams that like that colder temperature for the exercise they're doing. And then at adjacent city, Kenai, we have a helicopter training tank where they dunk the helicopter. So I'm assuming the oil field will probably want to have something function over at that one at some point in time, whatever that entity might be. So that's the pieces. And now I'm going to jump into the 710 if I can get there.
I know
Yeah.
the borough owns the building, so
Mhm.
we'd be up to the borough or the assembly to decide if they're going to operate. They could make a decision to continue to operate the pools.
I will let you ask that with the mayor.
So our presentation today was to help expel any rumors that are out there. We're also trying to make sure that we're doing the same presentation to all of the different entities. What the school district is, one of the pieces that we're facing is some of the schools are in a city proper, other pools are outside and just in the borough area. And so I do know that Mayor Machicki is also going to be able to answer some of those questions, so we don't want to answer that for you. Our presentation is based on the Board of Education action that the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District is no longer going to be using our general funds to operate the pools. But there is the options of a variety of different entities or cities who, or even the borough who may choose to operate the pool. But at this time, our presentation is based on the Board of Education stating that we are not going to be operating pools out of the base student allocation. And so we want to make sure that we're presenting this information if there are any entities who may be interested in doing this. And I do know from the conversation that Clayton Holland had stated that he had with the mayor that the Mayor Machicki will also be looking at some different options as well. Is that helpful?
It's helpful.
Okay, perfect.
And
Thank
you'll
you.
get into maintenance, right?
We sure will.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I can ask
We're
those
trying to
questions.
make sure we're following your 10-minute timeline. So Mayor.
Before you go on, this particular slide shows the pool manager's salary at 100,000 roughly. What about where do the lifeguards fit into here?
We will get there with this next slide if we get there. So our 710 pool operations, which is, you're going to hear 710, it's a common thing for school districts, so just bear with that one. But this is the operational account for the swimming pools. And so we have revenue sources that come in, the user fees, building use fees, lane rentals, donations, punch cards. We get Red Cross grants, all that stuff is part of where the revenue comes into that account. What it pays for is everything to operate that pool, less of the utilities that are paid out of our 100 account, pool manager salary, and then we have an in-kind from the borough for our maintenance. So if you look at those pieces that are there on that slide, you can see as we've go year to year, we have our revenue is sometimes 31,000. We've had some good years, 66,000, down to 37,000, the expenses that are there. With the profit and loss, I'll just say that of that account of operating the pool can go from a negative $4,000, which isn't that big a deal because you have a fund balance, up to $29,000 coming in, depending on the usage, how many, rentals you have and all those different pieces.
So Kevin lives and breathes this every day. And so I just want to make sure that we are sharing that the 710 is the revenue that's coming in. So when people are paying to utilize the pool, that is where those funds are coming from. And so all of these items here, such as your lifeguards, are going to be paid. So any money that's coming to the individual pool is coming out of the 710 account, which is also that revenue account. So I just want to clarify. And then at the very bottom, it will show the differences for year 22, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25. So there's a lot of information on this particular slide. So that's why I was asking for Kevin just to slow down to make sure you can look at that and then see if you have any questions for this particular slide.
For that $42,130 figure, is that the wages or salary for the lifeguards?
It is in part of that. It also covers the chemicals and all the other pieces that make a pool go around. So everything from the timing board, anything that we've replaced, we've actually been able to make this more efficient because we've installed variable frequency drives on our pumps, trying to save the electricity and get the operation smoother, save the pumps. And so all these expenditures, everything minus utilities, the pool manager salary, and maintenance all come out of this account and have done so for years.
Is this for all the pools? For,
This is for so high.
okay. Right. I would, then on the next slide, I have a question because those numbers don't match.
All right, we will go to the next slide. And that's is essentially saying the 710 accounts are not an ongoing revenue that we can just run down. There you have bumps and ups and downs in utility costs. You have, I'm not, sorry, not utility costs, in chemical costs for usage. Your lifeguards, you're going to bring in, depending on the number of swimmers you have in. And we try to look at all those pieces to try to have it as efficient as we possibly can. I think our pool managers have done a good job at that. I will get to the next slide. And this is a graph of some of those balances that you've seen on the prior piece. And it also has a bunch of information at the top about your water is metered and what type of chemical injection you have up there, and all those different pieces, your depth of your pool, how many gallons it is, and all those different components.
So, Mr. Mayor, earlier you had asked that question of where the water is coming from. So this would be that space that I want to make sure that we answered that for you as well. I also want to make sure that when we're looking at this number, that this is effective as of December 23rd of 2025. And so this was the revenue up to that time frame. So I do want to clarify that as well.
Perfect. So you can see that revenue has gone up and down, but the pool manager, to try to keep the ending balance there, has adjusted the expenditures to match the revenue. So they've been maintaining a fund balance. Any questions on that slide? Okay, next slide. So I'm going to say, why does this matter to the city of Soldotna? Pools primarily, if we look at the use and we track all the usage, are contributing more to the community than to our students. That we students use it a little bit, but the community uses it in a much higher volume. And so that's where we want to throw that out. Then that community, I'm saying, you got adult swim teams, you've got other folks that use the pool regularly. We have seniors that use the pool. And so this matters, I think, to a community. However, as you said, there's a pool adjacent, not very many miles away. If one was open and the other one wasn't, it could meet the needs of the city and the residents surrounding the city. Next slide. Maintenance costs. Pools are quite expensive, and this is based on a 4-year average of what these costs have been. I pulled all the work orders that are associated with the pool for each of the pools. It's an average. There are some pools that we've dumped up to $1 million into, or with the 5-6 years, redoing the tile deck and all those different pieces. So I can only give you a slice in time average. The borough has switched from an old school dude program to the Asset Essentials. So it was easiest to grab the 4 years while we've been running Asset Essentials, which is the current program we're running. If we wanted to go dig in further, we could go back. It's just a lot more cluttered because it wasn't tied as well back into what the features were that they were working on. So the new stuff is asset based, so we can actually do that. So maintenance cost varies year to year, and the building equipment are at different points for each of the pools at different points in their life cycle. Next slide.
While you're on maintenance.
Yep, certainly.
What is the age of the pool?
It's a night. Now I'm gonna go pull my hair out. It's in the 80s, and I'll just stop with it. I think it's 83 or gonna probably 83, 84, somewhere in there. What? 81. So different components are there. Sorry, I've got 42
And-
boxes.
And then the other, because this is an issue we're dealing with at another facility, how is the pool itself? Is it stable? Are we going to be looking at having to replace the pool because it's going to be leaking here and failing?
So far, this has been a fairly stable pool. It's a smaller pool. We've had more problems, I will say, in Homer and at Kenai, which are built, unfortunately, on sand. You guys have good soils here in the Soldotna area. So we have not been seeing a lot of stuff. We try to keep up and renew those motors and those pumps on a regular basis and the sand and the filters. So I will say it's in reasonable condition. Probably not the best condition pool we probably have right now is the city of Kenai pool, because we've just got done redoing the deck and a few things like that.
And are there people that go around and kind of do inspections and audits? So before it would make a transfer, you could get that done and have a better idea as to what it is you're buying?
We have regular PM schedules that are done on all the components. We can pull the PM schedules that are preventive maintenance schedules, sorry. But our borough maintenance team does an awesome job of going through that. We have monthly checks they go through, and certain things are daily. We have a water department there that maintains all of our chemical balances and those things. If you maintain your chemicals well, you don't have as much problem with deterioration in the pipes and those kind of things. So we have a whole team that does that at the borough, and they do an excellent job.
Thank you.
And the borough would continue doing the maintenance on that?
That is, if you go to that other model, yes, but they would be taking care of that, but there's a contribution set aside for maintenance, but they would do the maintenance because it's a borough building, and it would be kind of complicated if someone else was trying to do that maintenance when we've looked at city stuff. Okay, next slide. And I think this is kind of the big summary that's there. Oh, go back a slide, please. Pool manager salary is what we're asking, the utilities, and the annual average pool maintenance contribution. And when we get farther into that, we'll talk about what I would imagine if I was a city that could even for the maintenance contribution part. So we'll go to the next slide. And you were asking about all the other folks that were out there. These are all of our 7 pools. And they have different costs because they are different sizes. They have different average for your maintenance averages. And so these are like a summary at the very top, which is specific to the city of Soldotna, would be the pool manager salary, the utility usage, and the maintenance reserve. So that maintenance reserve, you'll notice, is fairly low, and that's because of the condition of that pool.
Any questions from the council? Go ahead, Joseph.
I just had a question about the utility costs. Looking at one of the prior slides, you're comparing costs among the pools. The cost for the Skyview pool was notably higher than that of Soha, and I think you spoke to that, gas being the most significant cost of operating a pool if it's gas heated. And right now, Skyview is being used by the hospital for physical therapy throughout the community. Moving forward, both pools being shut down, if we were to partner with the school district to continue the operation of the Sohi pool, I believe under this current proposition with us providing funding for those items you had identified, I'm assuming the school district would continue to retain control over programming with that pool. Would we have any guarantee that the pool would be maintained at its current temperature and it's not one of those situations where we take it over and then suddenly the hospital goes to SoHi and says, we want to do PT here, and you jack up the water temperature and our gas costs skyrocket after we agree to that?
Mhm.
Mr. Chilson, at this time, we can't make a guarantee of what is going to happen. And so the information that we're presenting here today is based on factual information, historical data, and what some different things could look like. So if we were to have conversations of what about an MOA or an MOU or agreements, I know that Mayor Machuki is also here as they are borough buildings. And so I'm sure that he would be able to maybe speak on what possibly those could look at. But we're trying to, we don't want to speculate. The answer is I don't know what could happen. And so that would be the best answer to give you is we're trying to provide historical data on averages versus what an MOU or an MOA would look like moving forward.
Got it. And I guess kind of expanding on that with the fee structure, I guess under this model, we would be partnering, provide some of the costs. And then I think one of the slides referenced a, verbatim partner on the fee structure. So I'm assuming with the collaboration between the school district and the city of Soldotna on a model in which we partner to cover some of those operational costs to keep it open, would there be interest in potential collaboration on the programming structure rather than we just cut the check and have no say in what's happening? Or would this be a mutually collaborative model in which we get to have say in how it's used potentially and have input on things like that?
I think all entities would need to be a part of that conversation. The other piece of it that we are also looking at is right now, all of our pools do have the same charges for use, for lane, for their lifeguards. And so we've given that opportunity to if different entities would want to charge more to assist with revenue, that they would also have that option. And so we would be giving, everything would be able to be given to that entity. But I think with those partnerships, that would be something to ensure that all of those individuals would be a piece of that conversation. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So if the city started operation of this pool, is the school district prepared to pay a user fee for using it?
Yes.
And you've got that built into the budget just in case? Your current budget for the school district?
So it would be up to each individual school. Several of our schools do swimming lessons, and so that would be a charge that would be established from whichever entity is operating the pool. So the school district, or I would say, for example, if Soldotna Elementary School chose to go to Soldotna High School for swimming lessons, that Soldotna Elementary School would be responsible for paying the lifeguard fees as well as the usage fees. We do have our swim teams, and so just like our hockey teams pay ice fees, it would be that same type of idea where the swim teams would also be paying that usage fee to utilize that pool. So depending on what the entity would look like, it would be whether it's the sports program or if it's the school sites, so that when you ask if it's built in the budget, it's not going to be built into the general budget that we have presented moving forward. It would be up to the individual schools as well as those co-curriculars who would be paying for those fees.
Anything else from the council? Okay,
All right. Next slide. And this is where I try to put myself in the shoes of a city, because I happen to have been in those before. I think the maintenance funds would be placed in a restricted count in the city budget and remain on that and be only used when maintenance is required. So whether we pay out monthly and then that would revolve up. Obviously, unused funds maintenance is one of those things that it happens one year, it doesn't happen the next year. So you have a good year and you don't have to do something, then we need to save that. And then we have that to deal with whatever comes up the next year. And so that was how I was looking at it from a city standpoint, is that could be a monthly, as the maintenance charges happen, then we would release those funds. And other than that, they would stay on city's books. Where this got complicated is if we went to a non-government entity, there's some respect and consideration and audits that happen at government agencies. We would keep those funds if we agreed to that. Where if you go to a private entity where we're trying to do it, it was a little bit more complicated. We'd either have to get a bond or something, because essentially they could do a lot of damage more than their fee was. So that was the maintenance funding structure I thought that was most appropriate. Next slide. And this is probably answering some of those other questions. These are the things that are not being asked to be funded. So lifeguards or instructional staff, swim instruction cost, district administrative overhead, all the certifications you have to have, all the training, the lifeguard certificates, custodial costs. We have special folks that have to be fit tested to do the chemicals we have so that they have all that. That would be still part of the district. And insurance costs, that we were not getting complicated and who's insuring what. And then capital expansion or new pools construction, that is not part of the maintenance, ongoing maintenance cost. That would be something completely outside of the scope, which all of those items would need to be addressed in an MOA so that everybody that was involved would be able to enter that. Next slide is the benefits. And the key one I want to is predictable capped annual budgeting, which we all struggle with. I think that's the biggest benefit. We would have transparent accounting. We're pretty good at that at the district of being transparent on the accounting on those things, and we would run those accounts over whatever needed to be done in the MOA. We could do monthly or whatever that might be. Next slide. This is the fee structure considerations, and I will do this fairly quickly. We can adjust those fees to start doing some of the offset. We know where we're at status quo, and if we wanted to do the fees, adjust those things. The problem is we want to go, it's market conditions. If you go up too high on your fees, you're not going to have any users. Next slide, I think is just a general summary slide that we can do. And if you go to the next slide, that was the model that made the most sense to me if I was doing this. And the last slide is questions if you have any. I think we've covered some of those here.
Anything else from the council? One of the scenarios you had in there was for the city to take over complete and total operation. But you didn't include any numbers in there that I saw for the retirement benefits, insurance, unemployment, and those sorts of things. Have you ever come up with any figures for that?
I can, the best answer is if the pools were run by the city would be responsible for the employee. So the employee salary, the employee insurance, and the employee benefits. So that would be whatever the city would want to pay that individual.
Okay, but what about the insurance, liability insurance on that particular portion of the building and
So that
Things
was,
like that.
that was the piece that Kevin had just shared. So that liability insurance would be, do you want to answer that?
Okay.
Okay.
So when analyzing all the different options that we could come up with, that's when we start jumping into those and how many, so I'll just put it this way. If you have multiple pools, then you can get all that training for a lot less and all those certifications for less. The building's insured by us at the district. And when you start complicating it by adding other entities, pieces of it into that equation, it got very complicated. And when I looked at it from my old city perspective, it was like, there's no way we're going to sort this out. And then you guys have a maintenance department, the borough has a maintenance department, and then trying to, if I don't go in and maintain a city grader, and then expect you guys to operate it. So I started to try to refine that, and that's why that option didn't really look very plausible, but it is an option,
But we don't have an answer.
but I don't have answers for all that.
anything else? Anything from council? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for your presentation. Mayor Machicki.
It is now. Mayor Peter Machicki from the borough.
And Dana Canova, also from Mayor Machicki's office.
Dana's here from the borough's perspective of what we're trying to do on how we're trying to help is heading up the collection of data and doing a lot of research on other entities on how they're doing this kind of thing. As usual, it's not the first time it's happened. So I don't really want to talk numbers because I don't think That's an important part of this exercise right now. The district has decided that they will no longer be operating the 7 pools. And what we've agreed to do, met with the superintendent this morning. I know Gary and Kevin are working with us on this, is doing the research and collecting possibilities. When we lay out on a slide what it looks like, if my guess is that there are 5 pools that end up operating. I think there's 2 pools that likely are not going to continue operating. One went to a service area already, lost on a 70-30. I'm the borough mayor, represent 62,000 people. 70-30 says that community is not interested. So we're down to the communities that are just still talking and thinking about whether or not this is even in the cards for them. The variation in agreements that are possible are unlimited. You really have to think about what fits your situation best. Soldotna is going to add a mill. They went out and did a formal survey. They already have a rec service area. So they did a formal survey of their community and came back with a 60-something% support to kick up their mill rate. I don't know that it's enough on the millage that they're adding. The reason I say the numbers aren't as important is I don't think you're going to get it right the first year no matter what. Without separate metering, which the borough can install, may install, depending on what these different agreements look like, so that people know exactly what is their cut of the utilities in the building. That's doable. John gave us the price. John Hedges, our project guy, and he's doing further research to see what that would look like. What we want to do is lay out some of the possibilities, and that can range from a service area like Soldovia's, a payment on behalf to the district, or a completely different entity operating the pool. And some of the things that are worthy of considering, none of it's overly complicated in my view, just the kinds of things is all of the things you talked about go into agreements and have been in agreements where other entities have operated formerly school pools. Anchorage does it with their Parks and Rec department. I've seen agreements between swim clubs. Sometimes there's a benefactor that will just collect a few rich guys that are willing to pay for it for the community. I mean, there's just every possibility or a blend of those things. And I've had calls from folks all over the borough with different ideas. So I don't think we can tether ourselves to one arrangement. There's a couple things that you should know. For an arrangement that remains under the school's ownership of that pool area, even through a contract with another entity, it remains a school and we can continue maintaining it, our borough maintenance. We do not have rec powers. So if it becomes an outside entity and we separate that space legally, then the borough can't maintain it. So we would like to continue supporting, in our view, those 7 pools have been paid for by our taxpayers. They own them. We don't. We just watch over them for folks. And I would like to see them have the opportunity to use them for communities that want to invest in that option. So other things, when we talk about the different arrangements, it doesn't have to be a school employee. Even if it remains under school control, it can still be contractually distributed. Distributed meaning figuring out the liability, the costs. One entity wants to do a non-school employee management team. Anyone can be trained has that level of experience or that training available to them. It brings the cost down fairly significantly. It doesn't have a PERS or TERS impact to it. Just another possibility. They're kind of limitless. If you're interested and you want to talk about details, our role, from my understanding, is that we'll be bringing the interested parties together. We're going to be putting out a survey to the 7 communities to see what entities may want to participate. We've heard from a lot, but we just learned last night that there's another group of people that want to help with one of the pools. See who's interested, see what that cost pie looks like, how you can divide it, and see if it's doable. The costs for the whole system is relatively low, but it's just what each individual community is willing to put up to keep a pool open. But any of those agreement or arrangements are possible. There's no doubt that the cost, so when on the sheet that came from the original presentation that came with the maintenance, that 4-year average for all of the pools was 261. There could be a 261 year. There could be a $750,000 year, right? You don't know. I mean, for an entity to take on the maintenance of a borough asset that is not for sale, none of them are for sale, would create a lot of risk for another entity. It clearly, the cleanest path is either contracting with the school, with the district for operation, or paying on behalf school, current school employees to manage that entity or that facility. I don't know, I didn't do a presentation. I think it's a relatively simple thing to consider. If you're interested and you want to look at other possibilities, we're happy to get together with you. I think the ultimate solution has to be individual metering. I think whoever takes responsibility for the facility would have to work in collaboration with the school. If you contractually take on the operatorship, it's your space. And you would have to work with the district on how that scheduling looks. So again, many possibilities, options. It really depends on your interest. I'm not used to doing these kinds of discussions with an entire city council. It's good for everybody to hear the information at one place. But like I said, we're the only entity in the borough. Let's see, Seward has its own metering now, right? Yeah. So we've been operating a pool, Kenai Peninsula Borough, through the North Peninsula Rec Service Area. They also have rec powers. They voted themselves into a service area for that. So we know exactly what our costs are for that space. No two spaces are the same. There's a lot of different factors that affect the energy rates for the heating of water, the space surrounding the pool area, the efficiency of the building. There's a lot of different aspects to consider. So without direct metering, it would be difficult to know exactly. I don't think that's entirely the number one issue. Getting close on a first year is pretty important. It's going to take you a little while to get exact on what the actual costs are. But something to consider is the KPBSD, other than a couple of pools that have other revenue sources that are fairly regular, do not run the pools in a way that is revenue intensive. Like they're not focused on making money to pay for the pools. They're focused on running a school, and that happens to just be another thing that they do, right? So if someone is actually taking on the responsibility of running a pool, you can have a lot more activities. You can bring other entities in. There are things that you can do to lower your costs and increase your revenue that might get you fairly close to neutral. If you're a city, I would think that there would be a break for your taxpayers and a higher expense for folks that are not city residents, like some people do in other things. But that's really up to you. That'd be up to the individual interested parties' decision on how this is going to go. My bet is if you decided you were interested as a municipality, that there would be other partners that would participate in a formal agreement with the borough that could soften the hard municipal costs for you. I wouldn't want to roll the dice on what something's going to cost me. I would suggest that any of these agreements are relatively short term so that you would have a really good idea of what those true costs look like after a year and you can make a longer term decision. They're going to close right now. So there's not a lot of risk in a pilot project year for folks that decide they might want to try this. And if it ends up being more expensive than you're interested in continuing, they were going to close anyway. So I think that's all I have other than questions on the borough's role.
Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. I know you mentioned it, but I'd like to explore the topic a little bit. So we seem to have skipped from school district operating pools to city partnership and really not given a lot of credence to the service area aspect of it. So can you talk a little bit about maybe why we're not seeing if there's a service area in the Soldotna area that maybe have a community support for a mill levy or that whole option? Would you mind speaking to that a little bit more?
Sure. We spent a lot of time evaluating service areas and their potential to pass. Very mill rate dependent. I guess the last one within 2%. People are stretched right now and kicking in more money for what they view as a government service, I think is going to be, first of all, borough-wide, in my view, has no chance in passing. With some legwork, perhaps a more local one could.
And just to clarify, that's kind of what I was talking
Yeah.
about is Soldotna. So I know Ninelchik is not Soldotna as far as community. So I was just curious from the local perspective.
Well, and the other thing to think about is if you run one and it fails, you're kind of boxed into that decision like Ninilchik, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's that's the great thing about a second-class borough. We're lean and mean, but you can get more services if you draw the right circle, ask for the right mill rate, and get 50% plus one to vote yes, right?
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter, or Mayor Machicki. So have you considered if the borough or the school district, if there was an entity out there that was interested in entering into an agreement, since these could take time, since there's detail, that the borough would continue to operate for another year with an effective date of FY '27?
Well, that would be interesting and possible if we operated pools. The borough does not operate pools. We own the building. When it's an educational institution, we have an all-encompassing lease from the individual school or from the district. We're one of the rare places that has a borough maintenance program that is under me that does almost entirely school work and is a part of their local match. And many districts that they do, the district has the responsibility of both. Good and bad thing about that, but things about that. But no, we have no intention of operating the pools. We're going through the exercise right now on school funding. It's going to be another big year. The idea of us picking up roughly $1.5 million to continue operating pools that may or may not have any community interest is not going to happen. We don't have rec powers, first of all. If we go through these exercises and we see a lot of community interest and people want to consider some sort of other arrangement, I would still encourage the contracting with the district, which allows us to maintain them without rec powers. We don't want rec powers. Rec powers is, we love what you guys do. We love enjoying your parks and all that stuff, but we're something the size of West Virginia, and rec powers is an endless open door of new services and
I
high
remember
cost.
when trail powers were rejected by the residents in the 90s, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chilson.
Thank you. And first of all, appreciate you coming out today to present to the council and address any questions. I mean, as we're all aware, this is a very difficult discussion, trying to find a solution, navigate our path towards it. In the absence of the district's ability to fund these pools, I struggle with the idea of, to Councilmember Nelson's point, jumping directly to municipalities taking over operation of them. I mean, you gave the example of Anchorage where they've done that model, but I feel like that's a very different situation than we have here with them being a unified home rule borough versus a second-class borough here in a home rule municipality. So them being, the pools being borough-owned facilities, it feels more appropriately run by the borough, but to your point, again, you don't have rec powers. So trying to find the solution to that, I personally really support the idea of a recreational service area, but again, I agree with you. If you tried to do a recreational service area that spanned the entire borough, I don't feel like that's a viable solution. I think the reality is that would fail. I think maybe a potential alternative that would be a central peninsula area, a recreational service area, maybe mimicking the boundaries of CES. I think that would potentially be worth exploring to see if there would be support from the voters on that. And I would just like to hear your feedback on this, if that's something that you would be interested in potentially exploring and putting forward as a ballot question this fall, or if that's not something that your office has interest in, maybe the only other alternative to get a question like that for a central peninsula service area for recreation powers on the ballot would be a citizens initiative going to the clerk's office. And I mean, anyone could get a petition going to get a question to put code forward to do that. I'd just like to get your stance on that.
I don't believe that service areas should ever come from assembly members or my office. I think they should come from the people. I actually think they were designed for that, although we have the option. Since I've been there and watching the borough, whenever a single assembly member decides something's a good idea, they're often incorrect. So there is the option for the citizens initiative. You can draw whatever circle you'd like, say what you believe the services would be. You estimate the costs, you hand it to us. Brandy does her magic on what a budget looks like, Ms. Harbaugh. And then we determine the mill rate and it goes on the ballot and get a yes or no. I personally right now don't think that's probably the best the best way to start. It might be once you determine the actual costs and know what you're getting into so you can give better numbers to the electorate, because you go in at 1 mil and then, like a recent service area that combined 2 fire service areas, 2 years later, they realized they didn't have enough and wanted to double their mill rate. And it looks pretty dishonest. Looks like, and I don't think it was in their case. I think it was a lack of preparation. But I'm not giving them that mill rate. Neither is the assembly, because they agreed to something that passed because of the numbers they gave and they were just incorrect. So might be better to do a little pilot project. The question is, do we need 2 pools this close to one another? One of them's not within city limits. One of them is. I think that's a fair question. If we're tight enough in this limited population that the cost of running a pool is even a question, the cost of running 2 pools that are 1.5 miles apart as a crow flies is probably a question we should answer first.
Okay. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Parker.
And looking at the numbers provided by the school district, it appears that from a revenue generation standpoint, Skyview gets a lot more use than Zohai.
It does currently. There's the water temperature thing. There's so they're being utilized differently, which draws the revenue to the warmer pool. I don't know that couldn't change. I know swimmers say it can. You've got to have the colder other pool and you got to have the warmer other pool, and that's just not. It's a little bit like when we were going through the school design and they said you have to have a whole bunch of little tiny toilets or it can't be an elementary school. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's that specific. I think you have to decide which pool makes the most sense and adapt its usage to the greatest community need. And if you're looking for revenue, you would consider that on how you model that particular pool. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's what we're asking is who's interested, who wants to talk about a serious conversation. We can lay out the models that are available. Once the group for that particular pool comes up with something, we're going to present it to the superintendent for his folks to decide whether or not they're interested. But there are a lot of options that have been done all over the country that are very different. It's just whether or not there's one that matches your needs.
So, so you brought out a good point, Mayor. Who in the end is going to make the final decision on who takes over operations? Is it the borough administration? Is it the school district? Who's going to make the final decision when people start negotiating? Where is that?
So we'll bring we'll try to do the preliminary negotiations with our team and give it to the district to see if it's something they support. If everyone operates in good faith and something comes together, that's great. If not, they're going to stay down. At some point, they'll likely be severed from the educational facility, which gets expensive. Then you need site control and ingress and egress and the other problems because you'd have to completely separate the pool area from the school itself. If they can't come to some agreement and a pool is sitting there and that space is marketable to other community members, we'll have to find a way. Again, the people, taxpayers of the Kenai Peninsula Borough own those pools. And now we no longer don't have even school bond debt reimbursement. It's all us. We agreed to pay for them at one point or another and did. We used to have some relief from the state. We have essentially none now, and it's declining every year. So they're ours and they're yours, and we'll have to figure out the best way for that to work.
Anything else from the council? Just one quick comment. The entire borough pays for the school district and to operate that, the pools and everything else. But yet, if the city gets involved in it, you're asking our taxpayers inside the city, which is only 4,500, to support that.
Mayor, with all due respect, I'm not asking you to do anything.
Well, that's what we're being asked by
Okay.
someone.
Yes, no, I actually think if I were going to set it up, I would make sure it was in a way that the users of the pool that are not city residents were picking up their fair share of that cost. So,
And there's been a bit of a logistical problem with trying to do that. Because so many people just say, I live in Soldotna, but don't actually live inside the city. So anything else from anyone on the council? Ms. Hutchings?
Yes, Mayor Michicki, I am curious, why are you involved if it's the school districts who we have to do the negotiating with?
yeah, so we had early conversations. Again, it's a weird relationship because we own the buildings. And what's not clear is what's going to happen if they decide to close them forever. If they close them forever, we're going to do our best to put our assets to work instead of just having them sit there and fail over time. So we have a group of people at the borough that are very creative on the way to put deals together. And we'd like to put fair deals together that have put our assets to work. So we're volunteering, and we're happy to do that. They focus on education. We focus on other things. But we do own that space, all of them. And you do. We manage it for you. The thought that we're going to allow 7 pools that Kenai Peninsula Borough taxpayers have paid for, I don't know, what's the earliest one, 70 something, right, in Kenai? Pools don't get better sitting there empty. It's like a boat. You get more wear from the 8 months they're out of the water than the 4 months they're in the water.
Ms. Hutchings?
I know you're saying that the taxpayers have paid for this, but I can remember many times that there were special grants that came from the state to build these pools, to build our soccer fields. So actually, the residents didn't pay for it.
Councilmember Hutchings, if you would like for me to bring you the records of the pools and what paid for the 7 pools, I'd be happy to do that for you if you'd like. You'd be quite convinced that we've picked up the lion's share of school costs for many
I'm
years.
not denying costs of operations, but I'm talking about the actual construction.
Yes.
Anything else from anyone? Saying none, we thank you very much for the presentation and we'll move forward and see what's
Sure.
going on.
Okay, thank you.
The next is the swim club, and I'm well, you're kind of getting the short end of the stick here with.
I'll try to be so fast. I get really nervous. I'm sorry. My name is Maureen Todd. I'm a teacher with the school district, just to disclose that. But I am representing the Soldotna Silver Salmon Swim Team as their member at large, and this is
My name is Stephanie Snyder, and I am the head coach and a part of the swimming community for the last 16 years.
so we're in a really unique position in that we obviously love the pools, but we don't operate the cost side and we don't operate the building side. So the information we're bringing to you is mostly, we did a lot of research on the use of the SoHi pool, the most recent information we could get from the pool manager, and what other communities do to pay for their pools. Because again, this is an ask, and the school district doesn't have the money. We don't have the money. Based on the news article I read for the city, you guys don't really have the money. So we're going to have to be really creative and figure out a way to work together. So I really appreciate this time. I appreciate you guys including us, because like I said, we're not really the big players in any of this. Okay, so we interviewed the pool managers and this is for SoHi only. The programs include PE. They have three classes a day that go through there. They have a swim team, field trips, private lessons, and special education, which is actually a huge, like their IN kids come, and it is a huge part of their program. Students served monthly is 200 to 300. Community programs include swim lessons, kids don't float, cold water safety, open swim, lap swim, club swim, you guys can see, and it's about 150 to 200 participants. Now, we were talking about revenue and programming and why Skyview outperforms SoHi, and we're gonna talk about that. This cost information is based on the KPVSD report. Kevin Lyons already went over all of that. The income, this is the money that the pool gets from our program. So the SoHi team pays $2,700 for the season to utilize the pool, and the Silver Salmon pays $1,900 a month to use the pool, and it's about $13,000 for the whole season because it goes from October to April. That's a rough estimate. Slide, excuse me, wrong button. Okay, so these are the challenges that we encounter over at SoHi based on feedback that I've gotten from the pool manager, swim team, Master Swim, and the SoHi swim team. So the SoHi pool has been closed every summer since 2015, and that really cuts into our opportunity for generating revenue because you make so much from swim lessons in the summer. Additionally, when you have families coming in the summer, that kind of feeds into the usage during the school year because families like greater access creates greater usage. So the more people are seeing this pool as a resource to them, the more they're going to utilize it. Did you raise your hand? Sorry. No. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, it's okay. So there also is a lot of feedback that people don't seem to know when to use the pool, like when can they come to open swim? What are the hours of operation? So there's opportunities for marketing because right now that is a challenge, and there's also limited programming. Next slide, please. So this is the same graph that Kevin Lyons showed. And so if you look at 23, 24, that was the summer we were open. That's when we made all of our money. We were closed every other summer. We were open that summer because they were redoing Kenai Pool. And so SoHi had to be open. And even though Skyview was also open that summer doing swim lessons a mile away, we still had that peak because we were open as well. 2 pools a mile apart, both offering swim lessons, both bringing in that revenue. Next slide, please. This is our current pool schedule. It is, you'll see later because I have a case study for how Palmer runs their pool. These are our programs, and they are very limited. There is not very much available to families, to homeschool. Skyview obviously runs their wonderful therapy program. SoHi is not able to run that therapy program. I have been told it is because our shallow end is too abrupt. So even if we were to raise the temperature, I have been told this could be wrong, that it's because it wouldn't be a good fit for the people that need the therapy. Okay, next slide. So I did a bunch of research on how pools are run in the state and nationwide. 85 to 95% of public pools are a hybrid model. That means part of it is tax revenue, part of it is grants, part of it is revenue you bring in from programming. You can also have sponsorships, like we could become the Hillcourt Pool or whatever. Pools that are not run in these hybrid models, and if they're like only a nonprofit, they fail within 3 to 5 years unless they are done perfectly. There is very few examples. Okay, next slide, please. So in my research, I found that most of the schools, oh, look, I have a typo, I'm sorry. Anchorage, Wasilla, Juneau, and Kodiak all run this hybrid model. Okay, next slide. So what you do is you have a nonprofit. We are a nonprofit, so we could apply for grants. Cities apply for grants through their Parks and Rec department if the city were to take it on. There's revenue generation through programming like swim lessons, swim team, school. If the schools were paying to rent the facility from you, that could possibly be done. Students, I believe right now pay like a PE. There's a fee that they pay for their PE classes, and that could be incorporated. You can have sponsorships, corporate sponsorships, grants, and other alternative funding like using taxes or bonds. Next. We can skip this one. It's like a summary of the other one. Okay, so we have a lot of opportunities for growth. You saw our schedule. It's rather limited. If we offer things like group lessons, private lessons, adult learn to swim lessons, Alaska has the highest drowning rate in the country. And so there's adults that don't know how to swim. Parent-child lessons, this is where the parent comes with the kid and teaches them to swim. Homeschool, I mean, you can see the list. There's lots of opportunities to make our schedule more robust, to have more offerings to generate more revenue, because I know like money is the factor here. So, okay, so next slide, please. I did a quick SWOT analysis. So our strengths right now at SOHI is we have there is community engagement. It's not only the school using the pool. We're recognized for having the best water temperature. That's not for therapy. That's for the teams, right? For the athletes. We also successfully host PE, special education, and master swim. We also have the elementary schools come for field trips sometimes. Weaknesses are funding gaps. We're currently really reliant, like the school district has paid for it, and that's money that's coming from the BSA. And when it comes to having to choose teachers over pools, I mean, I know it's a hard choice, but it's going to be teachers. And so there's just these terrible funding gaps that everybody's facing. There's lack of marketing, and because of the marketing, there's lack of accessibility. Like people don't really know when it's available. Okay, next, please. Opportunities. So we could expand safety training, things like cold water safety, WSI, which is water safety instructors. They're the ones who do the swim lessons. So we could be the trainers for the swim instructors. It could become a regional hub. It's centrally because of where we're located. There's opportunities for grant funding as a nonprofit. And then we already talked about the programs. Possible threats would be closure risks like we're facing right now. Staffing shortages. So this has been a thing for a while. It's really hard to staff the pools because there's not very frequent lifeguard trainings, because there's not enough programs. It's like this weird cannibalizing effect. Like there's not enough programs to justify having the lifeguards, but there's not enough lifeguards to have more programs. So there's this opportunity for growth if we can figure out a way to invest in it together. It's also an aging infrastructure like we talked about earlier. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So our recommendation based on our research and the information we were able to compile, and then obviously Kevin contributed a great deal. Funding public pools is best achieved through a hybrid approach, combining municipal tax revenue, state and federal grants, and revenue generating activities like memberships and swim lessons. I know that the tax thing is not what anybody wants to hear, but those are the most successful models that we have found. So yeah, we could have a marketing campaign to boost our programming, have user group agreements. So like how the swim team right now rents the facility on a regular basis, having those consistent rentals like also how the hospital rents Skyview. Those are like really solid in making sure that your program is successful. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is the case study. So I used Palmer. This was based on another pool stakeholders experience. So if you look at their schedule compared to our schedule, it is nonstop. They're open like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now they are paid, they use the hybrid model. And so they use taxes and user fees. And it's just a way to differentiate the cost and the expenses. Okay, next slide, please. We, early on when we heard that the pools were closing, we did a stakeholder feedback survey just to kind of get a sense of, I mean, obviously there are stakeholders, they're going to be for pools, but we kind of wanted to get an idea of like, how much do you use them? How do they really benefit you? So it was interesting to, we had 57 people respond, and 56% of SoHi respondents said that they learned to swim at the SoHi, like they learned that through their PE class at their school. 94% were willing to pay more. So I thought that was really positive. Like the people that use the pool love it so much, they will pay more to use. They will pay more for it to stick around. Lots of people, 44% use open swim, 48% use lap swim. There's also master swim. Lots of people had personal stories about how it helped their special needs child. They talked about how it benefited their whole family. We can skip this part if you don't mind. Thank you. So that's the end. I linked the whole stakeholder feedback survey there if anybody was interested. I had the other resources of information linked in the slide. I don't know if you guys get the slide information in your email, but does anybody have any questions?
I'm Mr. Carey.
I want to thank you for coming here, and you limited the personal again at the end, and as a family that has special needs kids, I want to very much thank you for the work that you do and the advocacy that you are doing. And I would like to hear more about how people are impacted by these pools. And I understand the budgets as well.
Yeah.
But again, I want to just say thank you very much for, again, the emotion that you're showing and the care and dedication that you represent.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And at this point, I'm just going to stop the work session and we're going to go into a regular council meeting.
Great.
But you can stay here and we'll get down to public comments and presentations. You can come back up and speak some more.
Okay, I don't have anything else to say unless you want me to come back for questions.
But there might be some questions.
That's terrific. We'll stay. Thank you so much. Okay.
So